Okay, here we go. Australia and Oceania, Part 5.
But also just traditional food in this part of the world. This is a lowie. Somebody was talking about Hawaii. This is in Hawaii. A taro field. Taro, it's tubers, kind of like potatoes under there. And then this is a wet one. We were planting some of those. And then you have a ceremony. They're pounding it. You know what it's called when they pound it up and you get this kind of gooey, slightly chalky thing? Poi.
It, baby, right there.
When you go to Hawaii, you have to taste the poi because, well, not for its taste, but because that's a cultural thing there. But it's kind of fun to make it, and they do have a ritualistic aspect about it. Okay. So we have a lot about colonization and what was brought, but who were the original people? What was their basic culture? I mean, it's sort of a general thing, but they talk about this part of the world as having a land-based culture, so connected to the land. They also have reciprocal gift exchange, and this is something that is very important. So, reciprocal gift exchange. If you celebrate Christmas, on Christmas I give you something, you give me something. Okay, or on your birthday I give you something, probably on my birthday you give me something. There, it is no messing around. You get a present, you better come up with something else for them. It is this whole situation of debt and owing. So I have this picture of this fruit can. So I was in Palau, and a woman said, "Oh, come meet my family." So I went in, and we talked, and everybody's very friendly, and yay. And then right when I was leaving, they were pretty poor. The youngest daughter was like, "Oh, wait." And she ran away, and she came back with this canned fruit. I mean, again, also we look at the dependence. We're in the tropics. There's papayas everywhere, but this is what they would prefer. So she comes out with this thing of canned fruit. I was like, "Oh, thank you so much. I really need canned fruit." I mean, obviously I ate it, so sorry. But what that meant was I owed them. And that was partly why I was given this. So it was up to me while I was there to make sure that I gave them back something. Now, they would then owe me. So this is a traditional way of maintaining ties and maintaining a balance and a hierarchy of who owes who what, and they all remember everything. So
that's a question.
It's a reciprocal gift exchange is a really big part of the culture. Something that's also a big part of the culture in this part of the world in general is kava. Who here has had kava? Yeah, okay. Quite a few people. What would you say kava tastes like? Like crap? Okay. Yeah? A little more specific? Yeah, it tastes like dirt. And it really does taste like dirt. So you're like, okay, why? These people and these people, why would you drink kava? Why would you drink a big thing? And it looks like dirt, too. Why do you drink a cup of dirt? What's the bonus of kava? Okay, so it can be considered good for you. Relaxes you? Has a very calming, grounding effect? Okay, so kava also has alkaloids, and we talked about those. In this case, it has a very relaxing effect. And what would happen is the traditional chiefs would all drink kava together. They'd all, get a little more. Then it was, okay, let's talk business, let's talk territory, let's talk issues. But everybody felt just a little bit more relaxed. So kava is traditional there. It's very common to drink it. This is in Hawaii, where we were with a group that they've got the kava there. We're working in the lowie, and this is just students drinking kava. It's very much a part of everyday thing in this part of the world. And here we had some people who raised their hand. You want to get your kava? Oh, you don't have to go very far, okay? So, again, we look at what we've adopted from other places.
This is
you also have a very traditional separation of males and females. And again, this is a traditional culture. When you go there now, in some places you'll have that, in other places you won't. But traditionally, very, very separate. But it's also interesting because you have this separate, and this is in Yap, and you have some things that we would consider very gender defined. in our culture, in many ways, we think of a purse as for a woman. And when I was going from Palau to Yap, they were like, oh, they're all going to be carrying purses, the dudes. It's like, oh, okay. And he was showing us what he's another little woven packet of what, when I had purses to bring in, which I didn't. Well, anyway, they're woven out of palms. And what he is carrying in his purse, and you can get a little evidence of it, his lips are very red. It's like, oh, he's got red lips and he's carrying a purse. Oh, he's not transgender, which is fine if he were, but he's not. What he's been chewing are betel nuts. And this is how they grow. He's collecting them there. And you wrap them up in a pepper leaf. And then you chew on them. And it's super common. You know, this is just in a store. You get your betel nut. And again, if the betel nut's got some alkaloids in it, and caffeine is an alkaloid, and they're chewing them all day long. And you'll be talking to someone, and they talk about the betel nut accent, because they're like, ho, 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 ho.
Like our chewing tobacco that some people used to do a great deal.
No, kava is kava is a root. It comes out of a tuber. That's separate. This is a betel nut. It actually comes from a palm tree. And this is, it's very customary. And again, you go into a government office, and the person will be talking to you, and they'll have their little spit can, kind of like chewing tobacco, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And yeah. So that's a big part of the culture there. And so the men are all carrying their purses around. But then also women carry purses too. So she has her purse. And what these women are wearing are lava-lavas. That's what these skirts are. They're from the outer islands. So also when we're looking at gender and what people wear, if you are from an outer island and you are traditional at all, and they're more traditional, the outer islands, further out than Yap, the women will be wearing lava-lavas, these woven cloths.
Don't worry about that.
Also, they have their traditional religion. So clearly everywhere has their traditional religions. One of the particular aspects to this part of the world, not everybody, are the Marais. So this is an old one, clearly historical one when I was in Papayete. This would be their church or their temple. And with the traditional religions, this is in New Zealand, and these are Maori, again, clearly dressed very Western. Lots of Maori look just like us. And they were meeting us under a tree, and they were greeting us. And I was with my mother at this point, and the man came up to me, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he put his forehead against mine, and I put my forehead against his, and he looked at me, and we did this, and I'm thinking, what is going on? But I'm like, okay, be culturally sensitive, so we do this for a while, and he looks back, and he smiles, and I smile, and I have no idea what has happened. And it turned out later that I learned what was happening is he was doing hongi with me. And hongi is where you share breath. And the idea is that, like if two warriors are meeting, if you hongi, you're basically saying, you're going to come in, I kill you, where are we? So it's it's a traditional greeting, just like shaking hands for us began with, to show that many people say that you didn't have a weapon. That's why you would shake your hand. So you have tradition, they sang us traditional songs. And then while I was there, I went to, I can't ever say it right, Rotorua, and there's also a marae. So this is an everyday marae, where people are going, like you go to church. What's particularly interesting is there's the marae, so Maori, and then if you just turn and look across the parking lot, you have St. Faith's Anglican Church. Okay, we've got the different religions. And then you go inside the church. It looks like a church, and you look at the pews, and if you look a little more carefully at the pews, you're like, whoa! There's some angry faces on the pews. Not ones that I have seen in typical Christian depictions of anything. So you're seeing this combination, and you have Jesus up on a cross, which seemed pretty familiar. But then if you look down below, so you're seeing this real mixture in this church of traditional Christianity mixed with these traditional religions and how they are putting themselves together within this one religious space. And this church is also famous for, as you can see, that is a glass etching, and that is really the water outside. So clearly it's Jesus doing what? Walking on the water, and it's pretty cool. Done pretty well. Okay, also, with these mixed religions, so that is where you see it depicted. It's not formal. That is just how that church is made. And you have something that are called cargo cults. Cargo cults, particularly in Melanesia, during World War II, the Europeans would do this thing where they would carve out a swath of land, and then they would wait. And then stuff would drop from the sky, and you would get tools, spam, all kinds of things.
The airlifts, the drop, these were World War II islands. They were impacted by it. And the military services dropped military-type foods and supplies in these cases right here.
And so, if you think about it, you're like, cool, you do this thing on the ground, and then you do nothing else, and then God gives you a bunch of stuff. Yes! The Whiteys have a good idea with this. Let's do it too. So, you still have people who will carve these areas, and they're waiting for the cargo to drop. Now, there's a lot of debate about what is going on with people doing that now. Some say they're mimicking. They saw it. It worked really well before. It's just become culture. They aren't even exactly waiting for that to drop, but that's the ceremony. So from watching, but some also say that this is part of the reciprocal gift exchange, that they knew exactly what was happening. They knew that the Europeans did that. Europeans dropped stuff. They let the Europeans use their land. They were like, okay, we could use the land now. You give us stuff. Reciprocal. I mean, they're waiting a long time. So clearly, this would be a celebration. It's become its own thing, this cargo cult. So again, you see this mixing of tradition with other influences. Ha! She is not my picture, but I would love...
In summary, a cargo cult is simply these people who carve out the land and wait for the gift exchanges as they occurred way back in the post-war period. Nothing more.
If she were, that's Sister Agnes, and you know she's a badass. So also in terms of religion, you have the traditional religions, and then you've got your Christianity, and again, a lot of Catholicism, because as we recall, especially in Australia, because if you were Catholic, in many ways, often you got sent to prison in Australia. Some Protestants, Buddhism, Hinduism, especially in Fiji, where you did some surfing, a lot of Hinduism, there's some tension there with locals. Okay, cultural legacy. So what are some of the things that were left in these places? So, we left spam in the South Pacific, but the Brits in Australia and New Zealand, where they colonized, what game are they playing? Rugby. Okay, so even when you think, so that's a big, big deal out there. In Australia, New Zealand, rugby is a huge issue, and again, that came from somewhere else. A game that takes a really, really long time, days to play, is what? Cricket. Okay, so cricket's a big deal out there. A certain thing you do, you have tea time. And then, while I was there, fish and chips are everywhere. And we talked about that in the context of Britain.
That was from England.
And then we look at globalization. Clearly, we've got a pizza. Pizza's coming from where? Italy. Everyone's like, that was the last test. Italy, and we all know that they weren't making it with tomato sauce until they got the tomatoes from the New World. People are like, either I got that right or I got that wrong on the test. So you've got, I'm in New Zealand. This is from Italy, that it's a pizza.
Remember that. I don't know if it would sneak in there, but they didn't have a tomato until it came from the West cultures.
And some of the things that are on the pizza is actually kumara, and that is a native Maori equivalent to what we would say a sweet potato. So again, you see all this,
Sweet
this
potato
mixing
on
that
pizza.
happens. And language is interesting. In Australia, you have English is your main language, and then you have 259 Aboriginal languages. Okay, none of those are considered official. You have a lot of them. New Zealand is very different, and we talked about that Treaty of Waitangi. They signed a treaty, so although they were also colonized by the British, the language Maori is also official. So when I was going to the bathroom, everywhere you're going to see it in English and you're going to see it in Maori. Kind of like when Miami, a lot of it's going to be bilingual. So you see, and that's very different in terms of how they were colonized.
Okay, a nice short one. Take a break, but very cultural. Think of that in generalities. All the terms in there are important, but in general terms.